So that's why Black businesses are important, because we're as dynamic as any other race of people. We don't all like the same shit, but we need that variety. We need those options. And that's when we will start to flourish. So that's why they're important to me. You know what I mean? Because it contributes to all of our lifestyle, all of our tastes.
Welcome to Black Businesses Matter, a podcast about why Black businesses matter and the benefits of collaborating and advocating for Black businesses to drive impact. Each episode, we will cover legacy, hope, Black joy, funding sources, cultural shifts, equity, and so much more. We will provide inspiration and action while spreading some joy to a thriving community of Black business owners and leading thought leaders. Black Business Matters podcast is produced by the L3 Agency, a culturally sensitive influencer marketing and communications firm in Chicago, where relationships are our currency, passion is our profit maker, and people are our bottom line. I'm Larvetta Lofton, your host and founder of the L3 Agency.
Welcome to another episode of Black Businesses Matter. I'm super excited about our episode today. Our episode is all about Juneteenth. And so for our podcast listeners, you'll get a chance to actually be able to watch this episode. We're super excited about this show because we're talking about Juneteenth. We're talking about freedom. We're talking about access for Black Americans. And so when we thought about this show, we thought about what brand was significant to Juneteenth. And we have the Ideal brand right here in Chicago, who launched their business during Juneteenth. But before we dive into how they started, because I think it's really important that we understand what is Juneteenth and the significance around Juneteenth, because most people just don't know. We know that with George Floyd, the killing, everyone, it was all kinds of things going around, like people were talking about it. But before we start, I really want to talk about all of you. Had you heard of Juneteenth prior to George Floyd?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And was it here in Chicago, or where did you first hear of Juneteenth?
Southern family.
Southern?
Yeah. Really big down there.
Yes. That's
Alabama,
where I learned.
Mississippi.
In Atlanta. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Georgia's definitely really big on it as well as Texas, obviously. But,
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about you?
I'm thinking about it. It's been, I've known about Juneteenth so I don't remember when I really kind of like figured it, out what it was. But also my father lived down there in Marietta, Georgia. So I want to say that he was part of that, but I'm not really sure. I've known about it since I was 14, 15. I'm 46 now. So
Okay. So we've known about this for so long that I feel like now the world has finally figured us out, right? Yeah. We've been knowing about this. Yeah. What about you? For you, where did you first learn about it?
I want to say probably in the 90s, I started recognizing it. My sister was going to like functions in regard to Juneteenth, and we were getting into that separation from us and the 4th of July, their freedom versus our freedom, you know what I mean? Putting that in your conscience.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say in the 90s.
In the 90s for you? And what about you, Jahmal?
I think I want to say college. First year of college, being, exposed to more African-American history than you get it from your traditional, Chicago public school system. Just being more introduced to more figures during that time. And so I would say 1994.
Okay. And so, all right, guys, not that I want to go back to that moment of George Floyd, because we know that is a very sensitive moment in history. But knowing what we look at it today, and knowing that today I have the founders of Moor's Beer who created a brand. And I have said this about you guys. You all are straight up disruptors in the beer game. Mm-hmm. And how was that vision created, knowing that Juneteenth for all of you all, you were very aware of it? It wasn't like a trend, like, hey, we're coming out, like it's Juneteenth, let's come out. You guys were very strategic. So absolutely. I would like to first introduce yourselves as the founders of Moor's Beer. So I would like for you all to just introduce yourselves.
Sure.
Because we've got 3 founders at the table.
Yeah, co-founders. My name's
yes.
Damon Patton. I'm co-founder and CEO of Moor's Brewing Company.
Anthony Sherrod, co-founder, chief marketing officer, Moor's Brewing Company.
And I'm Jahmal Johnson, co-founder, CFO of Moor's Brewing Company.
Nice. And so tell me, what was that vision like for you all to launch this brewing company in Chicago, which is now national? Let me be clear. You launched in Chicago.
Yes.
It started
Yeah.
Yeah. I was down in Miami. I moved to Miami in 2003. I was consulting for bars, restaurants, and hotels down there. COVID came, closed all the bars, restaurants, and hotels on Miami Beach, and figured it was probably time to reinvent myself. So for a little while, I was doing kind of like odd stuff. I mean, it was real COVID scare back in March of 2020 when we kind of really started figuring out maybe a beer company was the thing. But the auspice was really, I drove Uber Eats for a while. After cleaning my crib for like 2 weeks and just being crazy on the Clorox and the doorknobs and light switches and stuff like that. And I delivered a bunch of beer, but it was like really, I don't know, off-brand beer, like, you know, some
low quality.
Yeah, low quality stuff that you don't typically see African Americans drinking, quite frankly. I delivered this beer to I thought I was going to like a white toga party or something, you know, it was like 15 cases of this off-brand beer. And I ended up going, to a villa on South Beach, you know, real, like a $20-30 million property, which surprised me. And then when I got inside the gate, there was a bunch of black people there, you know, shirts off, everybody running in bikinis and, you know, swim trunks and stuff. They were having a pool party. It was an Airbnb. They rented out the whole place. And so I'm helping this guy unload the trunk and get this stuff out the car. And my brain just starts working. I'm like, man, is all this beer for y'all? And he's looking at me like, yeah, dude, like, yeah, you know. And I'm like, okay, well, where are you all from? And they were actually from Louisville, Kentucky.
Wow.
And that's when it hit me. I was like, maybe I just missed the whole faction of blackness that I just didn't really, you know, my father drank beer. Like he hams and like, you know, stuff like that. Yeah. But, you know, I was a Guinness and like I was drinking different kind of beers than he was. But I left that stop with Uber Eats and I was thinking to myself, maybe I could sell black people beer. So I started looking into it a little bit and I called my brother Jahmal, who, you know, we've done several businesses over the course of our lives. I met him at 18. I've known Sherrod since I was 5-6 years old. So.
A brotherhood.
Yeah, it's real over here. Like you know, nobody, if you haven't known us for a while, it's like, you know, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I called him and he was like, yeah, man, we could, you know, whatever. And, we slept on it. He called me back like 4:30, 5 o'clock the next morning. Like, we're going to start this beer company and we're going to name it Moor. So I was like, yeah, we're definitely doing it.
Wow. So just that, we're going to name it Moor.
Yeah, just like that.
So y'all didn't whiteboard this out?
No, so.
I had a real good name.
You had it, just didn't make the cut.
You see him shaking his head right now?
No, well, I knew if we was going to do beer, well, first when he called me and said beer, it kind of rang a bell for me because I was already kind of searching for something to tap into some of this new DEI funding that was floating around in light of the whole George Floyd incident.
Rest in peace to George Floyd, bro.
Yes,
we seen the whole like American cultural shift in that regard. So when he called me about beer, I was like, man, that's actually, you know, perfect. So Sherrod and I started doing research in the beer industry, finding that, you know, there's only like less than 1% of the, you know, beer industry is African American. So it's super relaxed, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I thought it would be perfect, but then I wanted to know, well, why don't many black people gravitate to craft beer? And basically because it was not marketed appropriately, we felt. So starting there, I knew we needed to be like brand forward with our product. In light of the George Floyd incident, we needed to create something that resonated with the community. And I felt like history was something that we could like leverage and also kind of like our creative vibe, hip hop and all that. So I just wanted to create like, you know, something that people could be proud of and kind of like,
be sexy.
Yeah, sexy and create the vibe where, you know, they look at our cans like album covers or something like that. So it was just this whole like, and I was so excited when I thought about it, when it hit me, because I knew it would work, but everybody was asleep, you know. So, because it was late at night. It was like 3 a.m. Yeah, really so I couldn't like wait till like, you know, everybody
that's
woke
what happens
up.
when you have 3 co-founders. You got one that's working the night shift, one that's working the morning shift, and somewhere in the middle.
We all are pretty much early birds, but Jay is really the one that like, he'll get up. He'll be up there at 3:45, 4:15. Like, dude, I gotta rest.
I was up and because I knew it was it.
I remember exactly where I was when Jahmal called me. It was like later that day because we had been throwing ideas. After Damon called Jahmal called me and we were talking about the names and like what we wanted to do. And so I started to dive into what the brand really should represent from an emotional standpoint. Like, what are we really trying to say or whatever? And then Jahmal hit it with the Moors and was like, boom, that's it. Something I could sink my teeth into, right? From a marketing perspective. So we started to develop this concept of like, bringing forth a brand, like Jahmal said, it's a brand forward, but also a badge brand, something that people can identify with, something that when they have in their possession, it's meaningful to them. It resonates with them in a different capacity, whether they drink it because they think that it looks good or that it's a high quality product as it is, but it says something about that person's character individually because they participate in more, not just the beer, but the activities that we actually produce and experiences we produce for the people.
And we're going to talk about the experiences that you guys produce. But I'm going to say this for our listeners. You guys are going to really be able to hear their full story. So if you follow us on Black Businesses Matter, you'll know that we're going to bring them back to hear the entire story. But one thing that, and I appreciate you all giving us that history around where it came from, kind of like this concept of craft beer. So when we think about craft beer, you guys launched for Juneteenth. I want to really talk about like the advancement of Black people when it comes to Black businesses. Because when we look at companies, and you all have seen it, right? You all saw in the last 2 weeks, all the brands just slapping Juneteenth on
everything.
The
right?
ice cream.
Juneteenth ice cream.
Wow,
I mean,
and then it was vanilla.
It was right. I mean, it's and then so I don't know if someone was driving. You all, they even have Juneteenth fireworks.
Yeah.
Juneteenth fireworks. Like, I mean, it's crazy. So I really want to discuss, what do you all think? And we're going to talk a little bit more with you too, David, because we're going to talk about Disbelef, because people are probably wondering, like, who's this gentleman right here? Right? The Disbelef. So we're going to dig in more about that. But I do want to talk about, you know, really what should brands really be thinking about to advance culture and freedom around Juneteenth?
If I may, I think we should lean into the culture. I mean, I think, quite frankly, you know, as we've experienced already with Black History Month, for example, we've seen brands kind of leverage that to their advantage. But I think instead of being kind of upset about it, we should probably do the same, right? And in fact, it kind of creates another opportunity for our brands to be seen and highlighted in like a different way.
But at least we control the narrative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we lean into it and like cash in on it, basically, as do the other groups and cultures that have holidays and such that surrounds their time. So, you know, like Easter is always big time for chocolate or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think Black History Month and Juneteenth should be big revenue drivers for Black businesses. So instead of taking the other viewpoint, I think we should lean into it and capitalize and figure out how to own it versus it being kind of like appropriated, if you will.
Exactly. And I mean, this notion that, when I've said this, and we will definitely ask you all about joy, but it's giving us permission to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Because oftentimes we're not given permission to celebrate. There's all of these holidays where there's a celebration. For us, it's more of a very like, yeah, I guess, Master, I deserve to celebrate. Now I made it. We've never been able to do that. So when we think about Juneteenth, and I want to ask you guys what, you know, just from that question of what do you think brands should really be doing to advance the culture of Juneteenth and what it really stands for?
I mean, just keep trailblazing, building business. Because number one, without our own businesses, we really don't have anything. The only ownership I ever really heard of was home ownership growing up. Owning and building businesses wasn't even a conversation. In order for us to create jobs and create a community environment where we can sustain our own, you know, it starts with the businesses. So, you know.
And this is business owners right here.
Absolutely.
So business owners, it starts with business owners. And Damon, I definitely want you to say something, because I think that we don't see Juneteenth from the point of ownership. We see it from the point of, right, partying, and that's all fine, right? I love it because we all love to party. We love the lifestyle that goes with it, but really making sure that it's about ownership. It's about advancement. It's about freedom.
Sure.
It's about access.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one thing that probably needs to be acknowledged is like the dominant society is doing just that. Like the reason we got ice cream on Juneteenth is because they know it's a good time to start selling stuff to Black people.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So having something, first of all, prohibition was what, 1929, I think, 24, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they weren't letting Black people make beer then, and they didn't until like the 80s, you know? They also weren't allowing them to make tequila for a while. You know what I mean? So they weren't letting you do anything. But having the ownership of those kind of companies, having the ownership of the marginalized industries that are in this country today is, in my opinion, what it's all about. That's how we really do inject our culture into these industries, into these kind of workspaces that we're not present. And that's what was really this effort was about. It was just about making sure we were represented first.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like, oh, they like this beer though. So, you know, we started kind of making sure that we were injecting our culture into it. I mean, we straight hip hop. So it's like, we needed to make sure that that was coming through in what we were doing. And it's really like the blueprint for everything we got going, really, you know.
And let's be real. I mean, baby showers, bridal showers, weddings, funerals, all had what in mind? Some level of entertainment.
Celebration.
Libation.
There's some kind of celebration, and that goes across all genres, nationalities, and everything. And so we've never been able to own that space when we know that it's, you know, we're going to celebrate. And so I do want to take this opportunity to introduce you, David Grant, as the Director of Corporate Partnerships for Disbelef.
Yeah, strategic partnerships.
Strategic partnerships.
Make it the strategy.
Make sure we put that in there. As a tequila brand that's relatively new, I know that they are in Chicago, but they're also in other markets. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Disbelef Tequila started in Memphis, Tennessee, 2019. So
right before COVID.
Right before COVID. So the founders, Toriano, Banks, Ralf, Golden, shout out to my partners. They were club owners before coming into the tequila business. They were able to see, you know, what was really
where the real money
selling in the club was tequila. So that intrigued their interest and said, hey, man, let's get to Mexico and see what's going on. So it took about 3 years to create the formula you see today, which is Disbelef Tequila, which has that name for a variety of reasons. But that's how it came about out of Memphis, Tennessee. So we were about 2 years in before we entered the Illinois market to join those brothers in launching on Juneteenth of 21.
Yes.
Of 21.
Here in Chicago.
Yes.
And that was just from a promo standpoint. We actually
So initially last year, that was kind of like a drip. Like you guys kind of dripped a little bit. Everybody didn't know who Disbelef was.
No. So we were prospecting a year before we even got a shipment to Illinois. So we laid all of that groundwork. So by the time our shipment arrived and we were for sale, it was easy. You know, the accounts grew like that. And to date, we have over 100 and maybe 130 accounts throughout the city, like 19 bennies. So the growth has been tremendous here and still growing across the nation.
Okay.
It's good stuff.
And as this newcomer in the tequila space, and we're talking about Juneteenth, how significant is that for the brand, for Disbelef?
I think Juneteenth is just very significant for us, period. Like I said, building Black businesses, you know, we're the living, breathing example that it can be done in a space where many don't want you. You know what I mean? So Disbelef, the name Disbelef, is because a lot of people didn't believe in it in the first place. You couldn't even get a conversation to get distribution. So, you know, by default, we became our own master. So we got our own distribution. You know what I mean? We got foreign import, export. We can do our own thing, autonomous from anyone. But with suppliers ultimately. So the grand scheme of thing was to do like any other liquor. You create a great brand and you get distribution. Well, when there's none coming, what do? You do for sale. You know what I mean? So it's in alignment with the freedom that's associated with being emancipated with Juneteenth. We did that. You know what I mean? So shout out to my partners for that for sure.
Yeah.
Because they broke the mold with that.
Yeah.
You know how hard that is, what he's talking about right now?
It's crazy.
Like that's why there's nobody Black doing it. It's like,
man,
but here's the crazy part, guys, and I think that's how is that most of us are disruptors. When we look at it, we all are breaking some mold that has been there, and it's difficult, which is why we're going to talk about why you got to have Black joy to be able to do this. And that's a real thing, because we don't talk enough about the Black joy of why I get up every day to do what I do, because that is also significant. But what we haven't been able, so to your point of knowing that from a tequila standpoint, when I think about Juneteenth, right, for someone who's worked in marketing, what I'm saying to myself is this: there are no ad dollars. There is a bunch of ad dollars that is devoted to NFL, NBA, festivals. but there is right now in wide market for you to create ad dollars for Juneteenth.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of opportunity, not just to put Juneteenth on a product, but really create something that we all can literally celebrate. And that's something that I just, for my point for even asking how long, is the fact that we all have been worse, we're aware of it, but we have nothing in America that we travel to be able to celebrate Juneteenth.
But that's what I think, and just to answer your question even further, that's what the intention, we wanted to create it, right?
Yes.
So we were deliberate about Juneteenth because in 2020, Juneteenth started to become a thing, right?
Yes.
So she's like, okay, let's launch. Let's launch Juneteenth 2021 when we were creating, and then ironically it became a national holiday.
Yeah.
But going back to something though, and again, not just with regard to the freedom, right? And highlighting that part of that freedom too is Black businesses leveraging each other in that time, during that time, or not just during that time, honestly, but if we have to pick a time to do it, Juneteenth and Black History Month alike are the times where we should leverage each other's businesses and not just, so that way we own it completely.
Yeah. That's the low-hanging fruit, man.
It is it's a low-hanging fruit that can produce and yield so much return.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we don't even have a parade.
Right, exactly. Right. To your point, it's like it's developing. This thing is still developing. It's brand new in terms of being celebratory.
And we are in 2022. I just want to remind the world.
You brought up a great 1865, 20. Here we are.
You brought up a great question that I want to answer from a different perspective about what brands should be doing for Juneteenth.
Yes.
I want to talk about like brands, like larger brands that we know of, not just our African-American owned businesses.
Absolutely.
But I would say it's just staying true to diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's like, you can't just make Juneteenth ice cream. Have some meaning behind it, right? Understand what Juneteenth actually means.
Correct.
Right? Remember back in the day when they used to put, on Fruity Pebbles, they'd have like Fred and Barney like rapping.
Yep.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So that's like, having Juneteenth ice cream without having any substance behind it and no authenticity behind it is like Barney Rubble rapping.
Yep.
You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. So you have to actually understand and include people who actually have a perspective on Juneteenth, who are those creative thinkers, those producers of products, have them included into your push as a larger brand if you want to do something around Juneteenth, or you want to do something with the African-American market in general. So that's how brands can start to make that shift. And every year you use Juneteenth as recognized as a flag, like, I'm supposed to be doing something more authentic this year for, African-Americans, and not just something that I think or our little study group thinks that we should be doing. Like, what about those people that actually create that stuff and include them into
Absolutely. This is a point that when I thought of this episode, it's giving us an opportunity for those who sit in the seats, right? Who sit in those leadership roles to be intentional with telling their jobs and their bosses, we have to do something. Like this is something that we're missing out on as an opportunity to be able to showcase our real commitment and being authentic about it. Because it's almost, and I've shared this with David before, is that it's an afterthought. It doesn't happen until January 15th, MLK Day. It's like, we should do something for Black History Month. No, you should be thinking about that in September to be able to roll out. So Juneteenth, you should be thinking about that in Black History Month, that perhaps we should leverage something for Juneteenth. And I'm so glad that you talk about it, because when you talked about other brands, the other part is supply chain. You should be able, during Juneteenth, is to be able to create an opportunity for brands to be part of your supply chain, who provide beverage, services, to be able to come to the table and celebrate that. And celebrate that.
I totally agree. But I think it's incumbent on us to kind of create that demand, if you will, right? If they see how important we take it, I mean, we curate culture. So
we about to start a parade. I'm telling you.
It's really on us, right?
Maybe that's
can
we do a parade?
Absolutely.
All right, you heard it first.
Because the undercurrent of what we're saying, we're still speaking about this from a white spaces aspect.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We don't need any of that.
They will come to us.
We literally don't need any of that. We just literally need to do it and keep pushing. And just like everything else, they'll catch on.
So a Juneteenth parade that we put together that's like great. We'll I'm sure a lot of big brands want to be part of that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, just from Chicago, look at the Bud Billiken.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You were talking about earlier that there's nothing that we could travel to and that's something right there. They could do in every city in the country, or we could do in every city.
No, we could just do it here and have people come make it so big that people
Chicago is the destination city. People can travel here to be able to,
like how people travel to New Orleans, Fast and Fast.
Absolutely.
They can come here for Juneteenth.
Exactly, and to know
the Emancipation Ball.
The Emancipation Ball.
So we're going to talk about the Emancipation Ball.
Absolutely. We're definitely doing that.
Like, we're going to talk about the Emancipation Ball, because that's where, that's right here, what we get to talk about, how you guys have collaborated together to create this ball that is just opulence. That was the word, just straight opulence.
Disbelef tequila.
Yes.
Where opulence meets tequila. Absolutely.
I love it. And it's on the 99th floor of
Sears Tower.
Sears Tower. We're going to call it the Sears Tower. Yeah. But I know it's called the Willis Tower. But we're going to give them a little bit of love to the Willis. They paid a lot of money to put their name.
Jay said they're about to flip the name again, aren't they?
That's what I hear.
That's what oh, wow. Well,
it's going to be called the Moor's Tower.
Right, exactly.
The Moor's Tower. All right. So tell me about Emancipation Ball. Tell us about the Emancipation Ball that's being held on Saturday. The vision behind that.
What we wanted to do was definitely just thinking of, we knew we wanted to celebrate our 1 year anniversary, but we also wanted to include other Black businesses in our celebration, and just kind of considering the fact that, this is a milestone for us, and what other milestones out there for other Black businesses, right? But then how do we showcase that, that we've kind of made it to this point? So we chose a location that was just as iconic as we view our brands, as iconic as we view other Black brands, such as Disbelef, such as Alexander James, who'll be joining us as well. How those brands should be represented for Juneteenth. It just also happens to be our anniversary. So we wanted to create an environment where people could dress to impress, get dressed to the nines, come out, feel good, experience life on high, pun intended.
What my brother said, again, there's opportunity to create an annual celebration of Juneteenth and of Black businesses, of Black excellence. We felt like this is a great starting point, but we intend for it to kind of grow.
This is just the inaugural.
This is just it. Yeah. This is just the beginning, right? This is the genesis.
And it came full circle, honestly. It came full circle, honestly, because when we launched on Juneteenth last year,
they were there. We were shoulder to shoulder on the deck. So we were shoulder to shoulder on the deck.
So it just made sense for us, to we didn't want to bring every business in, but we wanted to be, we felt that there was synergy based on the way that the early success they had, the quality of the product, and things like that. So it was great to be paired with
the spirit of collaboration.
Absolutely. And I like to mention too, we're also collaborating with Alexander James Whiskey.
I saw that. I saw that.
Another Black-owned spirit provider. So he's doing quite well his first year as well. So we just want to celebrate that. We want to pretty much exhibit that Black brands could do it like that.
With excellence.
Absolutely.
With excellence.
And together.
We coming together.
Exactly.
So we're breaking down all stigmas and stereotypes that say that we don't do this, we don't do that. We rock with each other. We're going to be rocking with each other forever.
Yeah.
We're in the same space. We're in the same skin. It's natural.
I love this dialogue because I do think that we need more of this, which is why, I wanted to start Black Businesses Matter, because I really, truly believe that for every person, every guest I've had, it's all about ownership. They've all said it. And to be honest with you, it inspires me. So when I hear stories, it tells me that I'm doing something right, because literally I get to hear that other people have, this affinity to be able to build wealth and build legacy that we just haven't seen. And so we do ask this question for everyone. And I do want all of you all to ask this question, is why do Black businesses matter? How about I start from you?
Hey.
From the Disbelef brand.
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, in terms of legacy building, when we grew up, we only learned about home ownership. But the backbone to everything is business ownership, as well as home ownership. But business ownership is super important, because then you're controlling the revenue of your community. I'm tired of hearing the stories about how the dollar in the Asian community circulates this many times versus our consuming I'm sorry.
It's okay. This is my show.
I was wondering about
what I mean? Versus how we consume to the degree we making everybody else rich but us. But imagine if we're controlling that circle, you know, so that's why black businesses are important, because we're as dynamic as any other race of people. We don't all like the same shit. They are, you know, we just don't. But we need that variety. We need those options. And that's when we will start to flourish. So that's why they're important to me, you know what I mean? Because it contributes to all of our lifestyle, all of our tastes.
Well, I think black businesses matter because, I mean, I think it's the roadmap to freedom. Honestly, you control your destiny. I think we work so hard in school and all these other places that we go to get all this knowledge, and you just kind of like give it back to them. Aside from that, I think one of the greatest contributions to society is to own a business that pays people who provide for their families.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's like, for me, is the highest level of being a part of this culture, this society, this fabric, right? And I think it's important for us to do that so that we can control our destiny a little more and control our narrative more. I know business gets a lot of flack from the dominant society's left, if you will. You know, that kind of begrudges business and begrudges money, honestly. But in my humble opinion, I think that's to keep control of us and to keep us in a space where we are, right? But in order for us to break through it, we got to control our own stuff, right? And business is the way. So
business is the way. That's good. Right?
For me, black businesses matter for our kids, man. Representation to the youth. They often see, most images they see is breaking color lines with sports, or breaking color lines with music, or breaking color lines with school and education and stuff like that. But they don't really see that color line broken when it comes down to business. They don't know that, like, one of them can be the next owner of Target. One of them can be the next owner of Amazon. They don't see that because there's not a lot of people out there on display for them to model after. And so, you know, a lot of the kids, well, I shouldn't say kids, but a lot of the young folks that we talk to that are interested in the fact that, like, well, how did you get into beer? It's like, you know, you don't have to be a brewmaster, but you didn't even know that that was an opportunity to become a brewmaster. You didn't know the opportunity was, you know, to become the cat that actually builds the machinery that creates the beer. You know, there's so many jobs and roles within the industry, right? But they don't see that, so they don't really know that those opportunities are there. So that's why, to me, you know, black businesses matter, to be able to show a representation of what our children can be.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, they just stole my thunder like 3 times. I don't know really what else I can add. I was going to go with that, then I was going to go with that. Then I was going to go with that.
You took that.
I think
they just back.
Yeah, you know, they matter for so many different reasons, really. And all of reasons that were stated earlier are paramount. Like that, they're black businesses, especially from a representation standpoint, especially from the fact that, you know, we're providing a path for people who kind of never thought there was a path to this particular industry, that it is something that is definitely the way to get free. You know, we've been such a marginalized people for so long. I mean, I've had jobs for other people, you know, I hated every one of them. You know what I'm saying? This one is a job for myself, and I love the fuck out of this job.
Right.
You know, and it's harder than anything else I think I've ever tried. But this is it. Like, this is it. This one, to me, and I mean, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started off at 5 selling those little Chinese jacks at Beasley Bus. So, I mean, I've been doing this a long time. But this particular business being so marginalized, because again, you know, alcohol specifically was an old boy network game. Like, they controlled.
Not was.
It's not even was. It's still, again, it's only about 70 beer companies in the United States that are African American owned. Wow. That's crazy. It's like 12,000 beer companies.
It's like a $9 billion industry.
It's so much money.
And less than 1%.
And like, for us to not have any kind of, again, we don't know how to make beer. Like, I don't know how to do that. You know what I'm saying? But it was important to us to find someone, black if we could, that can make our beer. And we did that. And then, you know, I don't know how to distribute alcohol. But it was important to us to find somebody, black if we could, to distribute our alcohol.
But let me just clarify something real quick, right?
Don't give them too much, because you know y'all coming back.
We don't physically make our beer. I'm a CPA. I don't do the math.
Exactly.
But
match the numbers.
I match the numbers. But not only that, the beer that's being made is from our brains.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, we tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure everybody know that part.
Yeah.
Like,
they try to knock us for that.
We have a resident sommelier on our team, and then we come up with flavor profiles that
shout out to Derek
will pair well with food.
That's awesome.
Right? So we go sometimes to our co-packer and say, hey, we want to make this, this, and this. And they're like, what? Wow. You know, and we're like, yeah. And they're like, all right. You know, and to them, they might think it's not going to work. But then they're like, oh shit.
When they tell you they'll do whatever you say because you're paying for it, that's when you know.
So I just, you know, I just want to say that because Damon likes to say that a lot. We don't make beer.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, but and it's not just for us. So I do.
But I like that you brought that out because, you know, when you talk to, I mean, like, our man from Tesla, he don't make the Tesla.
That's my point.
Right?
No, exactly. Yeah.
So we get caught in that, and I don't know why we get caught in that. Like, we put black business like
on a super.
I don't like them because they ain't really making the beer. Amazon ain't really making it. I mean, they just getting products from Walmart and putting a price on it, and there you go.
No, I'm not standing in front of a stove in a tank doing it.
Yeah.
I pay somebody to do that.
But at the same time,
but it's my beer.
We make the beer. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But it's the same thing when we think about food, right? I tell them the ingredients to go. That's my product, but I'm not going in there and cooking. Somebody else gonna cook. There's a line chef for that, right?
Exactly.
And I think I'm so glad that you bring that out because I don't think that we get an opportunity.
We don't understand business enough.
But that's why I think black businesses matter. That's what I'm trying to get to. That's why. Because there's so many things that we could be doing as black business owners that I think, you know, the path from, you know, the school path to going to work for somebody else is so defined in our climate. You know, my mother
bred to be workers.
Exactly. You go, you find a good job, you work 20 years and you retire with a pension. I was like, no. You know what I'm saying?
But I can't comprehend.
Exactly. Like, you know.
Just understanding but I mean, and just real quick, in light of black businesses mattering, you know, some people out there might have ideas for businesses, but don't see a path forward because they think it's too large.
Right.
You know, but it's not.
But it's not.
Right. You ain't gotta own a bread factory. You feel me? If you got a recipe that you make good bread, you find a factory that will make the bread for you and put your name on it and it'll be yours. Put it in the store. Right. Co-packing is like one of the illest ways for us to break into the products.
Any industry.
Because we don't actually have the money to even
buy the
equipment and the warehouses and all as such to even do the production like
that. See, that goes back to my point about those larger brands affording that opportunity for you to work with them. It's like, so if you want to take it seriously and take it beyond Juneteenth, it's like, you know, there's some young black entrepreneurs out there that have an idea about fashion, that have an idea. So, hey, Ralph Lauren, why don't you let them use your shop?
Correct.
You get what I'm saying?
Correct.
See what Ralph Lauren is going to do.
That's the collaboration.
That's the collaboration that we need.
That's the collaboration we need.
Exactly.
That is inclusion and that's equity. No, absolutely. And that's what we don't see. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with someone giving you a check, you know, because we take checks too. We like checks, right? But don't just hand us a check. Hand us an opportunity that we can turn that check into many checks.
Absolutely.
That's the thing, because the one check to put a pastor I call it shut up money.
Right.
Okay. Shut up, do this. That's it. No, we're talking about creating opportunities where this check makes other checks and more checks and more checks. And that's something that we don't see enough. It's almost like you should be happy you got that check. Right?
Well, I mean, sometimes one check is enough, though. Like,
no, don't disagree with you.
Exactly.
But at the same time, keep bringing the checks. Sure. It literally is an opportunity to say, well, we did sign them up with a $50 million. And I say this because
I'll take it.
You know what I mean? I think about Mael. Like, she was like, no, we're going to take this check, and this check. Because we believe, they give us one. We just real happy. I'm just happy for the check. But we have to understand that we are deserving of many checks.
Well, it goes back to the age of wisdom, like teach a man to fish.
Yeah,
there you go.
You know what I'm saying?
We won't need.
But see, sometimes the dynamic is, you know, when we're talking about the dominant society, pardon me. Sometimes you just want them to give you a check and get the fuck out the way,
right?
Because you're leading the ideation of whatever it is that they give you a check.
And that's a great point, because they even tried to steer us away from putting a black man on the
several times.
Oh, I
almost got me.
Not for that.
Yeah.
Almost got me.
It was to the point to where it's like we had to really, stand our ground and say, no, we know the audience that we're talking to. It's been very well defined. Our messaging has been very well defined. What we're communicating is very, very well defined. Our brand essence and story has already been developed and told. We know what we want to do, and we know what our people want. How are you going to tell us what we want to eat?
Right.
Especially when you haven't sold to black people.
When you haven't sold to black people.
Well, the rationale was like, well, white people would be rebuffed. You know what I mean? They wouldn't buy it. They'll see a black man on the can and they'll be like, oh, And I mean, from my perspective, I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah.
Because I buy Corona in Lincoln Park and I buy Corona on 75th. And that's a Mexican beer.
Yeah.
You can't tell me a black beer can't be sold in both places too.
Yeah.
So we're going to stick with our guns, like we said, and that's what we're going to do.
Which leads us to, you guys are in for a treat for this Emancipation Ball. So if you don't have your ticket, I mean, I don't know about you, but after listening to this interview, I think you want to, just to be amongst these founders and these partners who've built ownership in their own right.
It's only about 30 of them tickets left, too.
Oh, well,
yeah.
I mean,
so,
sorry.
we need to
so here's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to sell some tickets for 2023.
Absolutely. Right.
And set it up for folks. But if you didn't get your tickets, what I will say is Emancipation Ball is coming back in 2023.
Absolutely.
In 2024.
Bigger
and better with the whole weekend. We talked about what we believe that we still need to do. So there's more things that we're going to be doing around that. So if you haven't gotten your ticket and they're sold out, I'm sorry.
Go ahead and get them. It's
emancipationball.com.
Emancipationball.com.
Emancipationball.com. Now, I'm going to say this. I know we thank you for listening to our podcast, but I'm going to tell you this. We're bringing the 3 co-founders back for episodes. So you just want to just hold tight, because they're going to dig in a little bit deeper on kind of some of their best practice, especially for entrepreneurs that are wanting to launch their own business and really be able to give you some advice and some things that could help you advance on that idea. So I'm looking forward to them coming back and really giving us some wisdom around that. So as we wrap, we do this because I just believe that it's important. I know we've got a little bit of time, so we're going to go through real fast. What brings you joy?
Money.
Oh, man, they say money.
Quick. I need a Baker song.
Anita Baker song?
You bring me.
No,
I
charaderie.
was so off the cut. All right, I'll take it.
Family and pretzels, snacks.
Pretzels!
True.
So y'all know what to get on some pretzels. What about you, David?
Go.
I want to say family, my children. You know what I mean? Their progress.
Yes.
It's a joy to watch.
Yes. So I love when
I got a real
they just cut to
you,
the chase, which I love.
Yeah.
Literally.
The money, he stole the money.
He stole
Right?
the money.
After that, it's the wife and kids.
Yeah.
So I just want to say this, fellas, in my final, as we close out this, obviously, I just want to be able to use this opportunity. Where can people purchase these lovely spirits for Juneteenth? You didn't get tickets to the Emancipation Ball. So why don't you go buy some Moor spirit and some Disbelef and have your own Juneteenth at home? How about that?
Absolutely.
Have your own watch
Absolutely.
party. So where can they purchase it?
A lot of places. It's like over 130 locations throughout Chicago. Your local liquor store near your home has Disbelef tequila guaranteed.
And what's the best way to make the tequila?
What's the best way to make the best cocktail?
Yeah, the best cocktail.
You know, I got a thing called Moe's Mule.
Okay.
I've had some of it. Just
I give you a secret
that.
recipe. It's kind of simple. Ginger beer, lime juice, a little sprig of mint.
That name's hilarious.
Yeah, that's Moe's
that's
Mule.
hilarious.
All
what
right,
I'm saying?
so go get your Disbelef, get you some ginger beer,
lime juice. Yes.
And
of course, Disbelef tequila.
Tequila.
You can do it. You can do it with the Blanco or the Repo. Both of them pair well.
Okay.
You know, it's up to your preference.
Because folks will still be probably watching Game 7. I mean, it's a whole lot of celebration going on this weekend. All right,
down.
Where can we get more beer?
About 250 locations across the Chicagoland area.
Boom.
And
Moorsbeer.com has a location tab on it. So you can find the location that sells closest to you. But
got it.
Same thing. You can walk in pretty much anywhere beer is sold and ask for it. It's probably there.
Okay. Yeah, your favorite. What's your favorite flavors?
I like our new Hellas Lager.
Okay.
It's infused with honeydew melon. It's a light 5.1, full body, German lager. That one, in my opinion, it's a fastball down the middle. I think that one's, that's it right there.
Okay. Anybody, you got a favorite?
I'm gonna go with the Session Ale.
Who?
The Session Ale, the first baby.
Okay, the first baby.
Yeah, my first son.
First son. Okay. All these you need to stock up for Juneteenth. I want to thank you for tuning in for another episode of Black Businesses Matter.
Thank you for joining us this week on Black Businesses Matter podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen so you will never miss a show. You can also follow us on social media at the L3 Agency and at Larvetta Speaks. If you love the show, leave a rating so that we can continue to bring you impactful episodes. You can also take the pledge and order our merch at our website at thell3agency.com. THEL3agency.com. Thanks for listening and see you next week.